Hello, hello. Welcome,
Hello.
everyone. This is a very inclusive group, very diverse. I like it very much. And we have a bunch of questions that I want to ask you. So I will start with question number 1 from Svein. Jan, is Shadow DOM here to stay? Are there any alternatives to it? Because basically we've heard that there may be some security issues.
Shadow DOM is here to stay. That's probably not a question anymore. It had an old API version 0, like 5 years ago, that was only supported properly in Chrome. And that was dropped and sort of removed from all browsers. And that is probably one of the reasons so many are skeptical of using the Shadow DOM, as they are afraid that it will, well, go away. But this version has come to stay. So it's really about time to learn it.
Excellent, excellent. So while I have you ready, I have one more question for you, Jan. So what is the best reusable design system for Angular if we were to exclude Material? Or anyone here that has an opinion?
Like Bootstrap is a good second choice that I really like to use. The main reason I really like Material design is that you have Angular Material and they're ready to use logic components, because when you're starting to integrate Bootstrap into an Angular project, you'll probably have to run some JavaScript at some point in a sort of hacky way. But Bootstrap is a really good second choice. Should look into.
Okay, excellent. Next question that I have from Abder Akman. Natalia, is it a good idea to test A11Y, like keyboard navigation, by using unit tests, or is it enough to run Axe plugin in the browser?
I think that there is never enough or there is never something too much to test for accessibility or in general. I know of a new tool that is called Betterer by Craig, one of our GDE colleagues or friends. I think I'm going to post about it in Twitter because it's a good tool to integrate unit testings into accessibility as well.
Excellent, excellent. So now I have a quick question for Marta. Do you know of any interesting APIs coming to PWA?
Interesting APIs? What do you mean, about web APIs?
Yeah, web APIs and anything that we can use for PWA. I think it's a general question.
Yeah, so the most important is just Cache API that allows you to cache your files, but also, for example, Intersection API that today I told you about, that it allows you to lazy load images, so it also allows you to create faster web apps. Another, maybe more closer to the native apps, like, for example, notification API or stuff like that, or using beacons or Bluetooth. That is coming to my mind now.
Cool. And how do you usually find out about the latest things that come up? Like, what is your usual routine?
So typically I'm following some nice people on Twitter. They publish a lot of useful news. And I think this is the most universal approach, just to follow people that's interesting about it.
Cool, cool. Okay, so the next question is actually from Jonathan in here. I think it's to Jan. What tools do you use for documentation generation, and is it Storybook based?
Storybook is a really good choice you should consider, but actually for the component library, we created our own. It only took us like 1 day. Okay. It's just a bunch of CSS and HTML, and then we had full control over everything. But Storybook is a good second choice. I see a lot of people using.
Cool. Okay. Anyone else has their own opinions on a similar subject?
No, I second Storybook. Yeah.
Good, good. Like, oh, let's vote. Storybook in motion. Excellent. Okay, so another one. So implementing some of the A11Y aspect requires extra depth and test time, which product owners are not always willing to allow. How would you convince the PO to spend time on A11Y?
Well, if the inclusive argument doesn't work, which would be bad, really, what you can always bring on top of the table is the legislation. So this is closing in, like every time we have more and more regulations around accessibility. And like I said, especially for the public sector, for big enterprises, they should be aware that there are people really working to make these regulations more proactively enforced, let's say. So need to think about it if you don't want to face a fine, for example.
That's a very good point. Yeah, and that's actually going to be a question for me. So, are the requirements different depending on the country you are? Like, do you think that there are any specific countries in Europe or US or across Americas and Asia that you know of?
Yes, definitely. They're more strict. I think in the UK, they're very strict. And in fact, I had a client 6 years ago, a large enterprise client in the UK, and they were already targeting level AA. So, and for banks and this like a health public system in the UK, in Israel, I think as well, you need to provide even level AAA. Like you need to provide transcripts, you need to make sure that everything is completely accessible. I think airlines and some other public services also need to guarantee this. It varies per country as well.
That's very important, and I think that unless we enforce it on some companies, like some companies are nice by default, but some need that extra motivation to be pushed in the right direction. So I guess that's a good thing. Okay, so I have one other question, which again comes up with Shadow DOM. So what is the best practice for creating components? Is it to use base encapsulation or Shadow DOM, or is there another way?
It's a really good choice to use the default encapsulation, which is just simulated, so it can technically be broken by the user. But I would also try to push people to try at least using the Shadow DOM version in Angular, as it has support in all major browsers now, as long as you forget about Internet Explorer. And it's actually fully encapsulated, so you can actually prevent your users from destroying your components, which is probably something you want in a design system anyway.
I see. And I have a bit of a generic question that is open to everyone. So when you prepare for your talk, how do you go about preparing your slides and the flow of the session? And since Jonathan, you didn't speak much yet, I'll open up with you. How you went about creating your slides and session?
Me? How did I create the slides? I started writing bits down on paper, different roughly storyboarding things, at least for the introductory part. Then I started writing code I had a proof of concept from before, but I wanted to rewrite it again so it was a bit fresher, a little bit cleaner. So I started writing the code, so I had the code set. Then I understood which code samples were important to get in on the detail section. And then add a healthy dose of procrastination and some last-minute changes. Then it landed in the end.
So be honest, when were you ready with this session? Was it like last night at 3 a.m. or like more in the past?
Close. I still changed the slide with the HTML example. That was written at 9:30 this morning. Oh no!
Excellent.
It was converted. I had it in my Google Slides originally, but it wasn't very readable, and I transferred it. I managed to cut it down and transfer it over into the reveal slides this morning.
Good job. It worked really well. So Marta, do you have any advice on how to prepare your talk?
I have similar methods. So I'm starting with a brainstorm. So I'm writing down all my ideas that I have in my mind. And then I think when I'm trying to prepare my slides, I'm doing it similarly like writing code. So I'm starting with writing the basic concepts with basic parts, like writing only methods. And then I try to add a body inside this presentation. So I'm trying to add more details, some news, some schemes, and some explanation how to explain it better to the audience.
Interesting. And Natalia and Jan, do you have any additional advice? Anything that wasn't covered yet?
Well, what I also try to do usually is to tell a story, a compelling story that people can feel, identified with, and they want to engage with or listen to, because it connects to something about what they do and how they feel about things. So this is another thing. Even if it's a very, very technical topic, I try to include this more emotional connection with the audience.
That's a very good point.
I do the same. Like try to set aside at least one day just to find a story to put into there in a natural way. Like try to fit in the story first, and then try to build the presentation around that story, so it has a goal or a message. So it's really helpful.
I totally agree. I honestly, once I was preparing for a talk where I spent 5 full days preparing my session, my slides and stuff, and of which I spent first 4 days on just the story. And then the remaining 1 day was on the technical part of the presentation, which was crazy. Yeah, cool. And obviously all of you have some experience already, like with public speaking, like actually ranging to quite a few years. Do you have any advice to somebody who would really want to join, let's say, the next NG Viking and be ready to go? Like any advice, like 1 sentence advice?
Just
do it. Yeah, just do it.
But I can tell that I highly recommend you to try it, because you learn a lot if you start practicing public speaking. Not only the soft skills, but also your technical skills improve a lot. So I highly recommend you to just try.
Yeah, my personal suggestion is start a YouTube channel. Like, you learn so much about creating videos that you will benefit from when you're speaking at a conference.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, so if we don't have any more advice, I think I'll close down the panel. Like, thank you very much for your amazing talks and for the time and effort that you put into this conference.